Halloween, the time of the year where we forget what our parents told us as kids and we go knocking on strangers' doors, asking them for candy. We dress up in scary-looking costumes and carve out spooky-looking faces on pumpkins. But where does this tradition come from, and how the hell did it spread across the world? Well, around 2,000 years ago, the Celts, who populated the ancient region of Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, celebrated Samhain on the 31st of October. This was a very important date, as not only it marked the end of the summer, but also the transition to a new Celtic year. But what we now see as a time to set new life goals and resolutions, back then, the transition was not so exciting. Celts divided their calendar year in two: the light half, from May to October, and the dark half, from November to April. The light half represented the long days of summer, filled with festivals and community gatherings, a season where crops would easily grow on the fields and food was abundant in the villages. Whereas the dark half represented the cold days of winter, when people relied on the leftovers from the light half, and if the harvest season wasn't good enough, a lot of people struggled to survive the winter. So, as a day of transition, Samhain played a very important spiritual role for the Celts. A day where the light met the darkness, and the boundaries between the physical world and the spiritual world were at their thinnest. Celebrations would usually last 3 days, starting when the cattle arrived at the village from the summer pastures, and the harvesting of the fields was completed. A community bonfire would be started by villagers and druid priests, while chants and prayers echoed throughout the night. Bats would be flying around the bonfire, attracted by the insects lured by the light, while crops and cattle were being offered to the gods, as a symbol of sacrifice. Participants would then take a flame from the communal bonfire and take it to their homes, as a symbol of protection against the malevolent spirits that might have been roaming the earth during that period. They would then have to keep the flame alive for 3 days, as failing this ritual would represent misfortune or even illness, according to beliefs. Some families would often leave a plate with food outside their homes, in a way to honor and ensure family ancestors would be satisfied, in exchange for protection to the household in return. This practice was also used as a gesture to appease harmful spirits that might seek to cause trouble during this time. At night, some of the Celts would go as far as dressing up in scary costumes in order to be mistaken as spirits themselves, so they would avoid falling in harm's way. This practice would later originate guising, a similar tradition to what we know today as trick-or-treating, where people would disguise themselves and perform songs, poems, or other forms of entertainment in exchange for food. As time went by, Christianity spread across Europe, and rather than a straightforward invasion, it involved a dynamic process of conversion and gradual reshaping of cultural practices. Samhain didn't escape, and in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III instituted November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day intended to honor all saints and martyrs in the Christian tradition, merging the original customs of Samhain with new religious beliefs. Soon enough, the 31st of October was known as All Hallows' Even, which eventually evolved into what we know today as Halloween. Later in history, November 2nd was also instituted as All Souls' Day, a day intended for everyone to pray for the souls of their deceased loved ones. With new dates and different names, some of the practices were also adapted to match Christian beliefs. Guising, for example, turned into souling, where instead of performing songs and poems in exchange for food, individuals known as soulers would go door to door, offering prayers for people's departed loved ones in exchange for soul cakes, a traditional small, round cake that was made with flour, sugar, eggs, butter, and milk, was then mixed with sweet spices like cinnamon and nutmeg before going in the oven to be baked to absolute perfection. The original English soul cakes were usually marked with a cross on top to symbolize the Christian faith on that day. Christian traditions kept spreading throughout the 15th to the 18th century, mostly due to the European colonization of the Americas. But when it comes to Halloween, It wasn't until the 19th century that a major transition occurred, when in 1845 Ireland got struck by the Great Potato Famine, an event marked by a fungus that would rot the potato while it was still on the ground, making them completely inedible. Crops across Ireland were devastated for 7 years, having a profound social, economic, and demographic impact. This left 1 million people to starve, as they relied on these fields as one of their main sources of subsistence. Another million of Irish decided to emigrate, with America being their primary destination. Due to their proximity to Ireland, cities like Boston, New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia received the major influx of this massive waves of migration. Throughout the years, all of these cities would end up benefiting from a cultural enrichment infused by the customs and traditions of the Irish. From the Irish pubs to the exciting music and the delicious food, one tradition that stood out was Halloween. Well, at the beginning, it didn't go as well as you'd think, as it took a while for people to get used to all the mischief, pranks, and scary costumes. It got even worse when pranks started escalating, ranging from harmless fun to property damage and stolen goods. Later in response, schools started educating children and parents about Halloween safety. Police departments also took a more proactive approach in protecting the streets during that night. All these changes turned Halloween into a more family-oriented holiday, making it even more famous and helping it spread across the country. Fast forward to the 1970s, Halloween was a much more established holiday, but it was about to reach a whole different level when it was introduced by the mainstream media to the popular culture. From featuring in special, themed episodes in television series like Charlie Brown, to expanding to the movie theaters during the rise in popularity of horror movies, Halloween was further embedded into the mainstream American culture. Video games, music, comic books, and novels followed, opening the doors to the beginning of the commercialization of the holiday. As a result, popular festivals with haunted houses, spooky games, and scary roller coasters began to emerge, and the carving of pumpkins became a yearly must-do activity. Since then, families have been decorating their homes with scary decorations. Friends have been gathering for spooky-themed parties, and a lot of candy has been eaten by the children. In 2023 alone, Americans have spent an estimated $10 billion in costumes, candy, and home decorations, solidifying Halloween as one of the biggest consumer holidays of the year. We hope you enjoyed the video. Check out our latest videos for more fascinating stories. Until the next one, Cloud out!